Make your PPT more exciting. How about I add NINJAS? Sure, do whatever. This is a story about my final days at my last job. Not going to try to obfuscate much, because they suck. I was hired to provide field service and support for a piece of software used for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. The job had lots of travel to interesting places. The technology I got to play with was cutting edge, and as I was getting bored with my normal support job, it came along at the perfect time. Before this story happened, I had been there 6 years and thought I would never look for another job again, because I loved it so much. To prep you for this story, it's important to know that in addition to 20+ years of its support under my belt, I also had a lot of experience with technical training. I love teaching people how to use things, so even though my job didn't call for training, when customers began to ask for it, I volunteered to add that to my list of duties. The company was grateful, and I did receive some extra compensation for that. In retrospect, it wasn't quite enough, but as I said, I loved what I was doing and wasn't really hurting for money, so I wasn't about to whine about anything. At one point, our small startup, I was number 13, my lucky number, got bought out by a bigger firm. This firm, of course, didn't really give a shit about what the software was used for. They just saw that it was making a ton of money all of a sudden, and they wanted a piece of that pie. The owners felt that we would get more opportunities by selling out. That may be somewhat true, but they never got to find out, because the new company got rid of them in roughly a year of time. So, we end up getting a big fat contract to provide our software to a country that wanted to use it to watch their borders. This was exactly what the software was for, so everyone was pretty excited about things. I was told that as the sole trainer of the software, I would be in charge of creating the training material, providing said training, and also traveling to ensure that things worked. I was pretty excited. This was what I had worked for my whole life. But there was one problem. The project manager, now we'll call him PM, to keep things PG, in charge, was a total dickhead, didn't understand anything about our product, and would never admit he was wrong about anything. Right off the bat, he told me, "You are in charge of this, so be ready to live the next few months where we are putting this system together, so you know the ins and outs and can create the training material." This I was ready for, it's part of the job. But as time went by, and the system was being built, hardware and software together, I was still sitting back in my office, waiting to find out when I was going to be sent out to start learning the system. Months went by. I kept asking about when do I leave, and was ignored. I realized how bad this was going to be when this PM asked me to show him how much material I had created before I had even seen the system being built. I explained I hadn't started anything because I didn't have any information to base the material on. He told me, "You've trained this software before. Just start creating it, and you can add things later if you have to." This wouldn't have been a big deal. But in this case, the software was completely revamped for this new project. Nothing was the same as anything I had created previously, so I could use very little of my old training materials I had already created. I told him that, and said I needed to be on site to witness the system, so I had accurate information. He told me I was wrong, and to just crank something out. Well, I delayed a while, because surely they wouldn't want me creating training materials in a total vacuum. I found out how wrong I was a couple weeks later, when I was getting a formal write-up in my file that I wasn't doing my job because nothing had been created yet. I argued that I couldn't create material without knowing what was supposed to go into it, but for some reason, no one thought that was necessary. I then had 30 days to create 80% of the training guides without knowing what was supposed to go into them. I didn't want to get fired, so I started pumping out PowerPoint slides like crazy. I already had a nice template, so I basically created all the topics I thought I would need, and then filled them out with blank slides. I then went through the software the best I could without having any of the hardware necessary to get proper screenshots and workflows, and filled in the blanks. I was literally sick to my stomach the whole time, knowing that all the work I was doing was going to be useless, but I also didn't want to lose my job, so yeah. After a couple weeks, my immediate boss loves the fact that I all of a sudden had a ton of content in my shared drive, so he told me not to worry anymore about my write-up, that my job was safe, and, see, you didn't need to see anything. You're doing great. That let me know that either A, no one was looking at my slides, and or B, no one understood what was going on. I'm guessing it was a lot of both. Finally, we had a meeting where the PM brought up the fact that I had created a lot of content, but it wasn't really exciting. Can you make it more exciting? I laughed because everyone knows there is nothing exciting about PowerPoint and said, sure, maybe I could add some ninjas or something. Sure, do whatever you need to do, was his response. Now, you could say he had a bit of sarcasm in his voice when he made that response. But you know what? Fuck him. From that point forward, I created a training set that consisted of roughly 1200 PowerPoint slides, and I made sure that every single one, except the title pages, had a stock photo of a ninja on it. I had a whole folder of ninja pictures, because I didn't want it to be boring. You gotta mix it up a little, right? I also had quite a few bad words in my text, because I was venting my frustration as I created each slide. Now, I knew this stuff wasn't going to be usable, because like I said, I hadn't even seen the system, so I knew it wasn't going to be accurate. I was just trying to hit an 80% complete mark in order to meet my performance goal. I was prepared to start from scratch whenever they decided to finally let me see it, so this wasn't something I was upset about. That's when it happened. It happens that this project, even though it was for a foreign country, was directly going through the USA State Department. They needed to verify everything before it was passed on to the client. Without letting me know, the PM decided, oh, Malelda has created a ton of stuff. Let me just send that right over to the State Department to show them how much work we've done. It took a couple days, but the fallout was pretty exciting. Apparently the US government isn't fond of slides full of curse words and ninja pictures. Luckily for me, I had reached the end of my rope with the company and already prepared the wife for the fact that I was going to quit any day. When I found out what happened, I laughed and put in my 2 weeks notice. They asked me to stay on to complete the project, and I got to explain that I'm quitting because of the project, so no, bye. They had to hire a couple interns to go through each slide and sanitize my dirty words. Then because no one else at the company could do training/support, they had to find someone else. That someone else insisted that they be given the training contract for the project instead of being brought on as an employee, so the company lost out on roughly 5 times the money they were paying me to do the job and won't be getting any training contracts in the future. I ended up getting picked up for a position on the government side of things due to my knowledge of the software, and now I get to decide which software is used in the future. Guess who isn't high up on my list to get renewed?